Hello students, and welcome to your overview and how-to video for your Week 4 inquiry, free fall and air resistance. Up until this point, we have focused on learning about kinematics and the variables that we will use for the remainder of the week, as well as the quarter and a couple following quarters. When we talk about kinematics, we're focusing more on 1D or one-dimensional motion. One-dimensional motion would be horizontal motion, where an object is simply moving left to right or right to left, or vertical motion, which means the object is moving up and down. When we talk about free fall, we're focusing on one-dimensional motion that is moving vertically, meaning it's going up and down or down and up. This assignment is going to be using your Explore Learning gizmo. So if you have not signed up for your Explore Learning account, you will need to go back to the Getting Started folder and sign up to have an Explore Learning account in order to use the gizmos for this assignment. Since we have used the gizmos in a previous week, most of you should have your account made. If not, again, be sure to go to the Getting Started folder so you can make your account with Explore Learning. When you're ready, in order to access instructions, you will click on this Week 4 Inquiry, Free Fall and Air Resistance title. This assignment is part of a discussion, meaning that whatever you post or your final product will be visible to the rest of the class. You'll notice after I clicked into this, there is no information. So what you'll do is click Create Thread, and that'll bring you into the thread instructions. In order to complete the assignment, you will be posting your own thread, and you potentially could be looking at other students' threads as well. When you get to this point, you'll notice there is an Explore Learning webpage link that you can click in order to open your Explore Learning in a new tab. And this is, again, where you will log in using your username and password in order to access the gizmos. Now, when you get to the point where you're going to start using the gizmos and you open that Explore Learning link, you'll notice there's a PDF file embedded here. There's also a file you can click on to open the PDF file in a larger tab. However, this will provide you with all the instructions that you'll need in order to successfully complete this assignment. It tells you how to find the gizmo. It also tells you about settings, so make sure that you read this entirely so you know exactly what settings you're going to be using. In order to complete the assignment, there's going to be two situations that students will study, and this is going to be based on your last name, similar to how we performed that assignment in week 2. Now you'll notice if you have the last names A through M, you'll use the middle question. If you have last names N through Z, you're going to use the question to the very right. If you have a sibling working in the class or a friend, you will need to pick opposite questions to do. So one of you should be doing one of the questions and the other one should be doing a different question. If you have a hyphenated last name, make sure to use the first letter of the first last name. And there is an example right here for you in order to know what question you're going to do. Now, the question that we're asking, we're looking at free fall, but we're also looking at the effect of air resistance and drag on an object. And that's going to ultimately be what we're going to study. Now you'll notice that this assignment doesn't have specific settings or it doesn't have specific steps that I have you doing. That's because it's your job to create the experiment yourself. So what does the experiment entail? What should it include? You should always have an independent or manipulated variable. Anytime that you're doing any experiment, you can only have one independent variable. You should never have more than one. You will also need a dependent variable. This means, again, referring back to our review that we did back in week 3, a dependent variable is going to be the data you collect. It's going to be the variable that changes based on whatever situation you do for your independent variable. So your independent variable should be one thing, and it's something that you manually change. Your dependent variable will be one thing, and it's going to be the data you collect, or the information that you are focusing on, whatever it's giving you. You will also have constant variables. Constant variables have to stay the same. So you will start with constant variables with a setting, and whatever setting you choose, those constant variables have to stay that way for every single trial that you do. So whatever your independent variable is and your dependent variable is, everything else has to be a constant. You have to think about how you're going to collect your data, and you got to think about what would be important data to collect in this situation. And then you also want to think about how you're going to show your data as well as analysis or models to your peers. Because again, remember, this is a discussion assignment. So other students are going to be seeing your work. Once you think of what you're going to be doing in terms of your variables, how you're going to set up information, the data you're collecting, and things like that, you can go ahead and get started. One of the things that students find that can help them get started in this actual assignment is to look at the gizmo itself in order to know what's available to them in terms of variables. So if I go into my account, which might look a little bit different, I would go into the physics class, which is what I was enrolled in, and you're going to find the free fall lab. And once you find that, you'll click on that. You're going to click Launch Gizmo, and that'll bring up the gizmo for you. Again, remember the stipulations and things that are going to be preset for you. Now, for most of the students, you're going to hit manual settings. And again, there are a couple of them that I have situated for you already under the instructions, so make sure you do that. But you'll notice I have different variables. I have mass, I have radius, I have height. I have initial velocity. Momentum and wind are going to be things that we're not going to change. So those you will have a presetting for. But just know these are different variables that you're going to see. And again, you have to think about which one you're going to be manually changing on purpose, which one you're going to be collecting in terms of data, and then which ones are going to be constant. Now again, the goal is to look at the drag or the air resistance. So you have to make sure you're focusing on a dependent variable that's going to show you if you have air resistance and how it's affecting the motion of the object. Once you get everything situated and you collect your data, you're going to present this in a form of a report. Now the report itself doesn't necessarily have to be typed. You can, if you want to, type it in a Word document. You can have a neatly handwritten report where I can read your handwriting, and that would be just fine. If you want a video of yourself talking about what you did and then presenting your data in graphs somewhere in the video, that would be fine. There's a voice thread presentation or any other methods that you can think of. But again, the goal is to present the information, tell us what you did, what your variables were, what your data was, your graphs, conclusions, and things like that. And then the last piece on the directions tells you what the reports should include. So you should include the question or whatever group you were in, any research that you did prior to that, and that's always optional. But if you do any, make sure to include it along with resources. You should have some type of hypothesis where you're talking about how free fall can be affected by air resistance in some fashion. So again, you're making an educated guess or a prediction. Again, tell us about your variables. What are your independent variables? What are your dependent variables? Actually, you should have one for each. And then your constant variables. The data you collected. Then you should have a graph of some sort with a trend line if you can. And that'll tie your data together. And then you should have a conclusion. And it gives you a couple of helpful hints on what you should include with your conclusion in order to present your information and think about any different ways you might perform this experiment at a later time, what errors could have occurred, things like that. Once you're done with all of that, you're done with your report, no matter how you actually make your report, again, is entirely up to you, but you'll post that information down here below. You'll notice there's a subject, and you can type whatever title you need for that. It is required if you see this little orange star. And then you can type your information, or you can attach a file using this Browse My Computer option. And then again, it will load your options for your files. You can find it, click to open it, and then submit it. I clicked cancel because I don't have anything to submit, but ultimately if you have a file, you'll click open, and then it'll attach, and then you would hit this blue submit button for grading. If you have any questions, or if you get stuck, or if you're having a hard time figuring out your variables, make sure to email me. You can meet with me in Collaborate Ultra, and I can walk you through some of that and help you think through that. Because again, we're going to be using these variables very often. And we're going to be doing other experiments where you have to pick out an independent and dependent variable. So it is a habit that I do want you to get down and feel comfortable with. Otherwise, good luck. And then when you're done with this, you can move on to the third assignment in week 4.